the inequality. Solve and graph the inequality. So remember, inequalities are just like equations. They just have a fancy equal sign. The only catch is you do have to remember, if you're solving an inequality or you're trying to graph it, if you multiply or divide both sides of the equation, both sides of the inequality by a negative, you've got to change the sign of the inequality. Okay, so let's just go through and solve this one. It's just like an equal sign. Don't let it throw you off too much, but once again, you just have to remember, multiply or divide by a negative, you change the sign of the inequality. So first of all, the first thing we're going to do here is notice something. This 3 is being multiplied to all of this, right? Now here's what's most missed on the quiz on Friday. Are you ready? So that you won't miss it. Is if this was a minus sign right here, isn't that a negative 3? Yeah. So what do you need to distribute negative through to both x and 1? And negative 1. Yes. Okay. Luckily it's not a negative in this problem, but it will be on the quiz. So right here we have 2x, and then we have plus 3x, right? Minus 3. And then we have it still less than 6x plus 8. So I'm going to combine like terms. So we have 5x minus 3 is less than 6x plus 8. Solving for x, so algebraically get x from one side to the other. So I'm going to subtract 5x from both sides. So I have negative 3 is less than x plus 8. Are we all good so far? So we'll subtract 8 from both sides. So we have negative 3 plus negative 8, which is negative 11, is less than x. Now, a lot of people cannot rewrite this correctly, so pay attention carefully. It eats the bigger thing, isn't it eating x? Okay, so when we reorder x first, it still needs to eat x. You can't just change those. You've got to keep the sign correct. So we have x is greater than negative 11. So that we can read it from left to right, because we always read from left to right. Is everybody comfortable with that? Okay, so let's graph that on our number line. You will see this on the quiz. So because inequalities have multiple answers. The answer is all x values that are greater than negative 11. So on my number line here, I'm going to find negative 11. I might not have enough tick marks. Let's see, 0, 1, 2, 6, 7. So I'm going to add a few in. 8, 9, 10. 11. So this is negative 11. I just added in some tick marks so that I would be at negative 11. So x value is greater than negative 11. So here's negative 11. So it starts at negative 11. Does it include negative 11? No, so we leave it an open circle. The x value is greater than negative 11, guys. We'll point this way because think about it. Isn't negative 10 larger than negative 11? Yes. Is it negative? All of these numbers, including all these numbers, greater than negative 11. So that's why it points that way. Questions on that? Okay, next problem. Write it down. So it says, what is the slope and the y-intercept of this equation? So we have negative 2/3 y plus x is equal to negative 6. So first of all, we can always find slope and y-intercept, but I'm going to get it in the graphing form. So isn't this a line? Isn't the degree 1 on x? So I'm going to get it in graphing form, which means y equals an equation, right? So let's get y alone. What's my first step? Guys, it's pretty obvious. What is the first step? Minus x from both sides of the equation. Do you guys all understand that we're getting y alone? So we have negative 2/3 y is equal to, I'm going to put this negative x first, so it's in mx plus b form, so negative x minus 6. Now to get y alone, my next step could be to, there's many different ways to do this. What could I do? Any ideas? Yeah, that's good. Let's do that. I like that. So multiply. So Brandon's seeing that we're dividing by 3, so let's multiply both sides by 3. That's a good idea. So I'm going to multiply by 3. Now I have to do this entire side by 3. So then 3 over 3 divides out. We still have our negative 2. So we have negative 2y is equal to 3 times all that stuff. So I'm going to distribute it in. So that's negative 3x, right? And then minus 18. Questions so far? Good. So next step to get y alone. Divide both sides by -2. This wasn't an inequality, so we don't need to change anything. There's nothing to change. So divide both sides by -2. Those divide out to become 1. And now we'll write it all pretty like in mx plus b form. So look, let's split this up. Isn't this -3 divided by -2? Which is 3/2, right? So we have a 3/2 x. And then what's -18 divided by -2? Yeah, good. +9, right? So we have it in y equals mx plus b form. So now we could graph it if we wanted. And then we could find the slope and y-intercept, but we know the slope. What's the slope? Let's answer the question. What's the slope? 3/2, right? mx plus b, guys. If we don't know this, we should not be in this class. We all good with slope being 3/2. And then the y-intercept is always when x is equal to 0, right? Guys, when x is equal to 0 for all equations. So I plug in a 0 for x. 3/2 times 0 is 0. So where is it going to cross the y-axis? Good. 9. So our y-intercept is 9. Questions? Don't miss out on the quiz. That's not that bad of a problem. Okay. All right. So just write this piece down. We're going to describe the shift. So we're describing the shift. I'll let you go. So describe the shift of f of x. So f of x is the parent function, which means non-shifted function, which makes sense. So this just means a function in general, right? F of x, that's not any kind of function that we know. It just means any function. Okay, so we have f of x. This is the shifted function. So there's a couple things to notice about this. We have a negative in front of x. Does everybody see that? That's different than it was on the parent function. And then we have a negative -6 being added with x. And then we have this +2 being added to the entire function. So we have a lot going on. So we're going to determine all of our shifts. So first of all, this is a shift. This is being added with x in a group, right? So isn't that our shift left and right for all functions? So we would say right 6. Don't we go opposite of what's added with x for all functions? Yes? Are we all good? And then we have this +2 being added to the entire function, and that shifts the function up and down. Sign stays the same. So we're taking the function f of x, we're shifting it right 6 and up 2. Now the next thing to notice is the negative in front. A negative in front of x will reflect it over the x-axis. That's why when you have negative x squared plus 2, that reflects it in upside down frowny face over the x-axis. So we would also say a reflection over x. Questions on that? A reflection over the x-axis, if I was being completely specific. Any questions on that? Okay. All right. Next one. This one you don't need to write down. Just look up here for a second. Don't write this one down. It says put in order from widest to narrowest. So we're going to put this in order from widest to narrowest. Now remember, if your a value, which is multiplied in front of your function, if your a value is larger than 1, so I'm going to write this right here. If our a value is larger than 1, it's a stretch, right? Because think about it. If you have an acceleration that is larger than 1, it's getting larger quicker, right? Does that make sense? It's shooting up quicker. So it actually takes this function that was normally sitting here. We now have a greater acceleration. Does everybody see how it stretches it up? Yes? Does that make sense? Does it make sense? It'll be easier to remember. Now, if we have an acceleration less than 1, it's a compression. Because think about it. If your acceleration is less than 1, if you have a normal function, this is a quadratic I'm mapping out, but it works the same for all functions. If you have a normal function sitting like this, and now the acceleration is less, do you see how it compresses it? Pushes it down. Okay. So it says, in order from put it in order from widest to narrowest. So this would be widest, most stretched, right? Narrowest would be most compressed would be widest. And then narrowest would be most stretched. So first of all, what is the widest? out of these?
Second.
The second one. Isn't that a value the smallest, people? So that's our widest. So we would say, I'm just going to go like this. This is number 1, widest. Okay, what's the next widest? The first one, right? 2? Right? Okay, 2 is the next smallest. And then -3. People say, well, -3 is less than 1. But the negative reflects it. That doesn't do anything to the stretch or compression. Does everybody understand that? Okay, awesome. So this was a reflection, but it still was stretched down. So this 3 was the largest, so that would be number 3. So we would say this is the next widest, and then this is the next widest. Questions on that? Okay. Okay, write this one down. And you guys can just do a rough sketch. So we're going to graph this equation. F of x is equal to -1/3 times the absolute value of x plus 6 plus 5. Now guys, you have to know right off the bat, an absolute value function is a v. You have got to know that. An absolute value function is a sharp v with a slope. A v with a slope. So the first thing we always do with any function is determine our starting point, which is where, if it was starting at the origin, which a non-shifted function starts at the origin, 0, 0, we've now shifted this, what? You tell me. Left 6 and up 5. Good. So we're going to start at the origin, go left 6 and up 5. There's our starting point. Now we know it's a sharp v, and we know our slope for absolute value functions. It's a v with a slope, not an acceleration. Our slope is -1/3. So from our starting point, we go down 1 over 3. Down 1 over 3. On both sides. Now, do you see how this looks compressed? Well, that makes sense. Isn't this less than 1? 1/3. So it kind of looks compressed, right? Now, you could always check it because our calculators can do these. You can type into your calculator. Remember, in your calculator, because we should never miss a graphing problem. If you do, you're wasting something that could potentially be easy. Because remember, in your graphing calculator, if you go to y equals, it'll load. Okay, if you go to y equals, if you want to type in absolute value function, it's being slow. Y equals, come on. For some reason. So everybody, if you want to know how to do it, sorry, I'll just have to explain it. So you go y equals, then in y1 you'll hit the math key. Math key, go over to num, N-U-M. And then there's the first one says absolute value. So you'd have to type in -1 divided by 3. Then you'd have to hit the math key, go over to num, absolute value, and then type it in. But you should be able to do it by hand. But you could always check your answer. Okay, I don't know why that calculator wasn't working. Okay, so it says, what is the vertex? Isn't vertex highest or lowest point? Yes, right? For all functions. So isn't this my vertex? So that's at -6 up 5. You're going to see this on your quiz. Our vertex is at -6, 5, right? And then the axis of symmetry. Guys, axis of symmetry is an x value where it's symmetric on. Does everybody see the axis of symmetry? If I folded it over that dotted line, it would be symmetric. So our axis of symmetry, I'm going to say it again. You will see this on the quiz. Your axis of symmetry is an x value. X equals, well, what value did it land on? What was it symmetric on? X equals -6. That's our axis of symmetry. Questions on that? Okay. Good. Okay, this one. It says, what is the solution of -3x minus 3y is greater than 6? So it says, what is the solution of -3x minus 3y is greater than 6? So first of all, this is an inequality. We're going to show the solutions by graphing, because inequalities have multiple answers. So first of all, you'd say, okay, so to be able to graph this, I need to get it in y equals mx plus b form. So the first thing I'm going to do is add 3x to both sides. So we have negative 3y is greater than positive 3x, so 3x plus 6. Is everybody comfortable with that so far? Then we'll say, okay, so we're going to get y alone so we can graph it. So we're going to divide both sides by negative 3. We just divided both sides of an inequality by a negative. So we're going to change our inequality sign. So we have y is less than 3 divided by negative 3 is negative 1. So negative x. Does everybody understand that one? And then positive 6 divided by negative 3 is negative 2. So now I can go ahead and graph that. And I'm going to just use points for right now. So you go down 2, and then our slope is negative 1. So you go down 1 to the right 1. Don't mess up graphing a line. So we have our line, which you better check and make sure your line makes sense. It was a negative line, so it should be going downwards. So then it says y value. So our solution is all y values. So listen so that it makes sense. Our solution to this inequality is y values less than that line. Not including that line, right? Not including that line. So we keep it a dotted line. So the points on that line are not considered solutions, you guys. If you have a point, so if I said to you, is 1, negative 3 a solution, you would say no, because it doesn't include the line. Okay, so now we'll shade. Our solutions are any y value that's less than negative x minus 2. So that would be below that. Are these the y values below the line? Less than the line. Okay. So any of these xy points would be a solution, you guys. So understand that, because I'm going to ask you on the quiz. For example, and you'll see it today in your packet, if I said to you, if I gave you this and said, is negative 6, 0 a solution? Doesn't that fall in a shaded region? You'd say yes. And then if I said, is negative 4, 2 a solution? You would say, no, it fell on the line, which in this problem, it was not including the line. Does everybody understand that? Okay, awesome. Okay, we're almost done. This one I don't want you to write this one down. I just want you to watch. So this one is a system. We just did one inequality. This one is a system of inequalities. So it says, what are the solutions of x plus y is less than 3 and y is greater than negative 7? So this is at the same time. This one has two equations here. So first of all, let's get this in y equals mx plus b form. So we'd subtract x. So we have y is less than or equal to negative x plus 3. We've graphed it. I'm going to just do a rough sketch because we need to I want to let you work. So we have this negative line, and it included, right? So it's a solid line. We learned this the other day. Remember that? So it's a solid line. Then we have a straight line at y is greater than negative 7. So y equals negative 7. I'm not including negative 7, so I go to negative 7. That's a line like this, and it's dotted. Now we've got to shade it correctly here. So it says y values less than this red line. Y values less than, so wouldn't that be below the red line? But greater than the green line. So isn't that all of these values in here? Yes? So if I said to you, is negative 6, 0 a solution to this system, would you say yes or no? Yes. Yes. If I said to you, so if I said to you, so you said no, you said yes to that point. If I said to you, is 0, 3 a point, a solution, what would you say? Yes. You would say yes. Very good. It's on the solid line, right? So it's included. If I said to you, is negative 7 a point, a solution, you would say, no, it's on the dotted line, right? Not including. Okay, awesome. You guys are totally getting it. Okay, last problem. This one's important. You'll see one like this on the quiz. I promise. I looked at the quiz and added this one this morning. So it says, write the formula for C in terms of A and B. Write the formula for C in terms of A and B. So first of all, I want you to notice something, so that if you're confused about what this means. Right now, don't we have an equation that's b is equal to all this stuff? So right now it says b is equal to, and it's an equation written in terms of a and c. Does everybody understand that? It's an equation written in terms of a and c. Aren't those the variables? So now we're taking this, it says write the formula for c in terms of a and b. So instead of having it be b equals, we need it to be c equals. Now we can't just take a b and c and switch them. That's not how it works. We've got to get c alone algebraically. Does everybody understand? So let's get c alone, and then we'll have written an equation in terms of a and b. So what's my first step to get c alone? What's a good first step, I guess? That's exactly what I would do. So to get rid of this fraction 1/6, let's multiply both sides by 6. Way to go. So now we have 6b is equal to 6 over 6 divides out and becomes 1. So we've now taken care of that 1/6. So we still have pi a cubed c. Now remember, what is your goal? You're trying to get c alone. So what is my next step? There is one step, and that's it left. Aren't these all multiplied? What does multiplication? Division, right? So what do we divide by pi a cubed? Divide by pi a cubed. So we have 6 over b divided by pi a cubed. And then that's equal to, look, that divides out becomes a 1. That divides out becomes a 1. 1 times 1 times c is c. Is c alone?
Yes.
So we're done. Did we need to cube root anything? Did we need, no, right? Don't do extra bad things. So we have c is equal to. So now we've written a formula for c in terms of a and b. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully you won't miss it on Friday. Similar to that. Okay, so you're doing pages 30 through 35.